Hey everybody, 5 Minute Trader here. It is what day? I don't know what it is. February 27th. There's been a little bit of a gap in these videos, and for a myriad of reasons, mostly health related. Had a little bit of a rough end of last year and new year, and I just honestly didn't have the energy to do it. But I'm kind of on the mend now, almost. Let me put it this way. Kidney stones are not fun. So it's been a really long time, and there's a few things to think about as a result of that. So number one, my account is like empty. This channel, if you're new to it, we spend 5 minutes a day looking for sort of short, medium term trades, typically option trades. So we're typically looking at a trade that lasts 30 to 45 days. Sometimes they last longer than that, depending on the situation. But it's been 2 months, so it's 8 weeks since I've made a trade. So all of those puts, and I had some calls in there, all those things I sold have all expired and my account's empty. So the upside is I have some cash to use. The downside is like totally blown up the channel. So I thought it might be worth taking the opportunity to kind of reset the way I do things. One of the most common comments I get from people who I do this channel, but I also talk to people in my day-to-day life, is like have an easier way to track success and what's happening. So I'm going to focus more on the tracking side. Like, are these trades winning, so that there's more value in the channel, and also it kind of makes things a little bit easier for me because those of you that watch the channel, I'm trading across multiple different accounts, like some retirement accounts, some cash accounts, things like that, for various historical reasons that aren't worth going into, and it makes it very difficult for me to do tracking quickly, is I'll kind of have to go into all these different accounts and see what's going on. So it's going to give more transparency to the channel. It's going to be quicker for me. It's going to let us know what's working and what's not. So with that in mind, we're kind of starting from scratch here today. And so that you know, the way we're going to do this is I spend 5 minutes looking through a list of ETFs. I'm going to find a trade, and if I decide I'm going to make one, I'm going to quick record that trade. From now on, I'm going to quick record that trade live in a tracker sheet that I have, which is kind of sitting in the background right here, that I will use. So let me just get that set up. There it is. Okay, so here's our 5-minute-a-day trader tracker. Cool. So it's going to be this simple. When did I place the position, what was the strike price, and so on, and I can always add more columns as we go along. So let's run down. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my ETF watch list. On this channel, we really predominantly follow ETFs. ETFs I have found over the years to be better for selling options because they don't have a lot of giant swings, and you don't have to predict the future as much, which is something I don't like to do. So the first thing I'm noticing, we're actually going to run through every underlying here today. So I'm going to sort just in alphabetical order and go through them that way. There we go. So as we look at the diamonds, which is the Dow Jones, we can see it has a lowish IV rank at 30, but it is down from previous days. It's not down to recent lows, but that could be interesting. It looks like it's having a good size up day today, so probably not the best day to necessarily sell a put, and not a good day to necessarily sell a call because it's not near as high, but we'll see. Let's take a look at movement. So then we've got EEM, that's emerging markets. This is one of my favorite ETFs, and this one, it's sort of in the middle of its range. It's been coming down the last few days. It has a decent IV rank, 45, so let's come back to that one. EWZ, this has been one of my favorites for a long time. EWZ, that's the ETF for Brazil. It's coming off a high, and it has a pretty low IV rank at 32, so probably not one I'm going to jump into today. But if it continues to come down, might take a look at that one another day. FXE, this is the euro. This has a really high IV rank, so we might want to take a look at this one. It's had a big down day today as well. Big jump down, although it's coming from a high, so it's not like a historic lows or anything like that. GDX and GDXJ and GLD, we'll look at here in a moment, is one of my favorites. Now this is similar to FXE. It's coming down from a high, is lower IV rank than FXE, but it has had a down move today, so I think we'll come back to that one. GDXJ typically is pretty similar to GDX, so it's just worth checking on IV ranks, but it's a pretty similar IV rank and a similar movement today. GLD, like this, and this is kind of interesting because GDX are the miners, right? Gold miners. And then GLD is gold itself, like the commodity gold in an ETF, right? So this one, we can see the difference. It's interestingly, like gold miners and gold, they're typically going to be correlated with each other, but not exactly like at the moment, right? If we look at GLD and we compare, look at its movement. How far back are we going? Let's do year to date, just so we can compare there. Year to date with the 1 day spread. So, actually, you know what? I'm just realizing we're in February. So let's do 1 year. So we'll go back a year. Here we look at GLD over the last year versus GDXJ. Is a very different movement, right? Now that's good for options trading because what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a portfolio that has positions on in lots of different underlyings that don't necessarily move in the exact same way. So they kind of become independent trades. So as an opposite example for that, let's say somebody buys in on the Dow, right? Like DIA. The Dow is, and I might be wrong, always correct me. The Dow is the one that has a lot of tech stocks in it, right? If I remember rightly. Is that the Dow or the NASDAQ? Doesn't matter. Let's just say for the sake of argument, it does. So I buy a share of DIA, and then maybe I buy a share of Apple Computers. I'm sort of really putting on the same position because Apple Computers has a major presence in that ETF. So I am sort of betting on the same horse in that example. They're not exactly correlated, but they're very likely to move in the same way. Whereas if I look at something like, say, the SP 500, which is eluding me right now. I don't see it in my watch list for some reason. But let's just do as an example, DIA here. And we can see its movement. Let's compare that to the movement of, say, silver. Okay, it looks like it's similar, right? Like silver is moving in a somewhat similar way to DIA, but it's not moving as an upward bound trajectory. But over the last few months, it's been moving pretty similar. Let's compare DIA to TLT. So we look there, this is DIA, and this is TLT. They're moving totally differently, right? So if we think about it, what this allows us to do is have short or medium term trades that kind of go on and off in the different underlyings. So let's say, for example, we've been trading with DIA and it's hitting a high and you've been selling puts and all of those puts are coming off, they're winning. And you're sort of like, well, you know what? It's at its high. I don't know if I want to sell a put because it might come down off its high. Well, then I might look at something like TLT and say, well, okay, TLT is moving totally differently. Or maybe I look at UNG moving totally differently. So what I'm kind of doing is I'm looking around and saying, okay, well, here's a good one actually, USO. Like USO has really been coming down as DIA has been moving up. So I can say, okay, I'm going to stop selling puts in DIA. I'm going to flip over to selling puts in USO because the underlyings aren't necessarily correlated to each other. So it allows us to create trades that aren't affected by each other as much. Okay, now it's not like they're never affected by each other. You have a stock market crash, typically everything tends to go down. So that's something to think about. But on the average day to day, which is what we have most of the time, they're moving differently. So it allows you to create an interesting portfolio. All right, there's a little bit of a side one. And this one, typically I'm going 5 minutes. This one's going to go a little bit longer just because it's a reset day. So that was GLD. IWM, that's the Russell. This has been one of my favorites over the years, mostly because of the price point. Like if you've got, a decent amount of cash available, cool, go with SPY, go with, DIA or the Qs. But look, they're $500. So if you're selling puts, that's the equivalent of taking a position of 100 shares. So there's a big difference between having 100 shares, the capital it's tied up in having 100 shares of QQQ versus 100 shares of IWM. It's less than 50% of the capital. So it gives you more flexibility to have lots of other positions on, but also it's good if you have smaller accounts too. So IWM is had a real big down move, right? But its IV rank is not that high, which is kind of interesting. IYR has been moving up. That's real estate, right? So that's been going up, but it does have a high IV rank. The Qs, that's some big down days there. Let's look at the Qs compared to DIA. Look, it's quite a bit different. That's interesting. We don't do pairs trading on this channel, but when you have investment instruments or underlying assets that are very correlated to each other, so DIA, QQQ, SPY, they tend to move in the same way. When they start to not move in the same way, sometimes people will do pairs trades because the assumption is, okay, these two are starting to move differently. I'm going to trade on both of them. That makes money if they start to come back to being correlated again. We don't do pair trades on this channel, but it might be something worth Googling if you're not familiar with it. Just put two separate positions on that are designed to make money when both underlyings move in a certain way. SLV, how's that look compared to GLD? Oh, that's pretty similar. TBT, I don't tend to trade on TBT a lot. It's the reverse bonds, but you can see that one's down quite a bit. And then TLT, that's the bonds that are coming up quite a bit there. UNG, natural gas. Whoa, look at that. Big swing up recently. It started to come down. And then USO, which is oil, has come down from a high, it looks like. It's kind of in the middle right now. Okay, cool. So now I've looked through everything. And now I'm going to show it by percentage change today. So there's nothing particular I saw there that I was just like, you know what, based on the last few weeks, I'm going to put a position on no matter what things are at. So the next thing I tend to do, and this is what I'll do on a day-to-day basis, is look at the biggest movements today, both up and down. So I can see that gold is clearly down today, right? It's down here at 49. Let's look at GDX, 39. Yeah, so gold has been coming down. So if I want to put a position on gold, right now, it's kind of in the middle of a zone, right? So if it were down here, I would definitely be looking to sell some puts. If it were way up here, I might be looking to sell a call spread or something like that. But it's not. It's coming down from a high. So it's a little bit more risky, right? It might continue to come down. We'll see. But the next thing I'm going to do, if I were going to put a position on, I'm going to look at the IV rank of each of these. So GDXJ has 46. GDX 43 and GLD is 41. So I'm just going to pick the highest. Okay, so that's GDX. It's currently at $49. So let's look, and we're at 49 days. Now, typically the sweet spot for trading options is around 45 days. So we're right in the zone here. It's a good time to do a trade. And typically we're starting around the 30 delta. The 30 delta right now, the midpoint on that is $1.17. So you'd make $117 if you sold one contract of this. And GLD stayed, what would be my break even on here? This doesn't list my break even, but that's okay. So I'm getting just over $1, which means that the underlying can come down to around 45 before this trade starts to go against me. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to lose money because there are things that we can do there, like rolling it and so forth. But that's around my break even, roughly. So let's look at the chart. Let's see where 45 is. So 45 is right here. It's pretty close to coming down to some of these recent lows. So I'd be comfortable putting this trade on. Doesn't require a ton of buying power. Its max loss is $4,500. So I'm going to go ahead and drop this one into my tracker. And we'll do that. So today's date is Feb 27th, 2025. And I'll try to speed this up a little bit in future videos. But you know what I've missed here? I just realized is I don't have the symbol. So let's put the symbol in here. So we're going to do a trade in GDXJ. Oops. GDXJ. We're going to do the 46 strike. We're going to pay, or we're going to get paid, excuse me, $1.05. Let's actually put this in like real terms. So it's $105. And the expiration is going to be April 17th. So it's 4/17/2025. And we'll see how that goes. So I'm going to put that one in. All right. Let me pull that in my queue there, and we'll look at that a little bit later. Okay, next. So that's gold. So I'm not going to do any other trades in the other golds because I've got one on there. Emerging markets, 43 delta. Let's just take a look at the same thing. 49-day, 43 delta. Excuse me. 43 IV rank is, let's see, the 30 delta right here. So my break even would be about 42.50. Let's see where that is. So that's not, I mean, it's below this low, but it's not near any recent low. So I'm not going to put that one on. SLV is very correlated to gold, so I'm not going to do anything there. FXC has a high IV rank. Let's take a look at this one. This one might be interesting. Where's my 30 delta? Oh, look, it's not paying much at all. 40 cents. So my break even would be 94.50, which is actually pretty low down here. It's below the recent low. But I'm only gonna make $40. Like, God, it's IV rank is high, but its overall implied volatility is very low. So it's just not enough money in it. So I'm not gonna do it. Q's not enough move. Let's look at USO. I know we looked at that earlier, but yeah, it's had an up move, but not a big enough up move. So that's it. Just GDX. What did we go with? GDXJ. Oops, wrong one. There we go. GDXJ. So we're going to go with GDXJ, put that on for $1.05, and we'll see how that goes over the next 49 days. Thanks a lot for watching the channel. I'll talk to you tomorrow.